And we are officially recording. If anybody jumps off. Hello and welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And give a few minutes for allow a chance for folks to join. Hello and welcome. I'm going to share my screen. Just give a few minutes for people to join and then we'll get started. All right. Let's give it one more minute. Sometimes we have some latecomers. All right, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello and welcome to the Carter Lake Area Improvements Public Information Virtual Session. My name is Julie Enderby. I'm the Education and Volunteer Supervisor for Larimer County Department of Natural Resources, and I'll be your host this evening. A reminder that this session is being recorded, just so y'all are aware. Tonight, we'll start with a short presentation about the improvements, including some background information, scope of work, estimated construction timeline, and a resource for more information. And we'll have time at the end to answer any questions. Questions can be submitted via the Q&A box. So you'll find the icon at the bottom of your screen to ask a question. Type your question into the Q&A window and click send. Check the send anonymously if you do not want your name attached to your question in the Q&A. The hosts or panelists will either answer your question via the Q&A box and you'll see the reply in the window, or they'll answer it live. You can also like or comment on other attendees' questions. This helps the hosts and panelists identify popular questions. To like the question, click the thumbs up icon and click comment to reply to an existing question. All right, so we thank you for joining us this evening. Let's introduce the panelists. Tonight we have Cindy Claggett, our Carter District Visitor Services Manager, Zach Wiebe, Planning and Resources Manager, John Plybon, Capital Projects Manager, and Corey Johnston, Communications Supervisor, who will be monitoring the Q&A. Before we start the presentation, we'd like to do a quick poll. Oops, excuse me. Find my menu here. Here we go. Okay. So we'd like to do a quick poll. We'd like to know, how do you enjoy your recreation or your time at Carter Lake? And you can select more than one answer. We'll let this run for a little while to give everyone a chance to answer and then share the results. All right, hopefully everybody's had a chance to answer. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share those results. So looks like everybody does a lot of different things. We've got some water sports, day shoreline use, hiking, walking, running, camping, pretty much everything that Carter Lake has to offer. Carter Lake is one of 3 reservoirs in this area. Flatiron and Pinewood reservoirs complete the Carter Lake district, and we'll have an additional reservoir / open space will join in anticipated in 2027, which is Chimney Hollow. So thank you for sharing. We'll have a second poll later, but now I'm going to turn it over to Zach Wiebe to get started.
Great. Thank you, Julie, and welcome everyone. Thanks for attending tonight. I'm going to begin by just giving a brief overview of some of the background and planning that have led to the improvements that you'll see tonight, and then turn it over to my colleagues for some more detailed information. So Julie, if you want to go to the next slide. As Julie mentioned, of course, we're focused tonight on Carter Lake, and specifically the east side and the area that you see there in the red circle, the Big Thompson area and the quarry area. And the map that you see and the improvements that you'll see tonight are an outcome of a planning process that we completed in 2017. We updated our Reservoir Parks Master Plan, which includes the 3 reservoirs that Julie mentioned, as well as Horsetooth Reservoir. And during that year-long process, we cooperated with the Bureau of Reclamation, the federal agency that actually owns the reservoir, to conduct this planning effort, and a component of which was extensive public outreach. We had community meetings. We assembled a technical advisory committee that consisted of just about every stakeholder you can think of with interests in the reservoir, from ecological to recreation to neighborhoods and the like. And we got a lot of feedback. We had over 3,000 comments that fed into that plan for the operations of those 4 reservoirs. And now, a few years later, we're closer to implementing the ones that you'll hear about tonight. And the other outcome of that effort were just some of our overarching goals, which we really consider throughout our system of parks and open spaces, and it's really threefold, which is to provide a quality visitor, nature-based recreation experience, while protecting our natural resources and ecological condition, and doing those things in a way that is both operationally and financially feasible. So we're hopeful that these changes to Carter will meet those three objectives. And I will share that related to that third bullet, the bulk of the additions that you'll hear about tonight are being funded through federal sources. So we have leveraged our local tax money to get two separate grants that are going to fund the bulk of this, and so that's something that's going to help alleviate some of the pressure on our local tax dollars. So with that, I think we can advance the slide, and I'll turn it over to Cindy, who will kind of give even more background and more detail about some of the things we're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Zach. Welcome, everybody. Like we said before, I'm the district manager for the Carter Lake area. So I'm kind of going to go over in the next few slides how the Carter area has been and what some of the problems we're trying to solve here with this project. So some terminology that we'll be using, the Big Thompson campground, the new quarry area, some of the pull-off parking alongside the county road, and then the current swim beach. So we'll be talking about those areas. So right now, we have 7 campsites in the Big Thompson campground area. Those are the non-electric campsites. And then primarily the recreation all the way from there's 3 dams at Carter Lake, Dam 1, Dam 2, and Dam 3. Dam 2 is in the bottom right-hand corner of our screen, and the Dam 3 is the top right. And then, so that whole stretch between Dam 2 and Dam 3, we can primarily show that there's recreational uses all along the shoreline there. So we're not trying to change that with this project. We're not trying to emphasize any day use that's happening outside of the shoreline, just providing some organized access there. So the most of the day use that's happening outside the campsites themselves is for that shoreline use. And then, oh, I think I just covered that. So you can go to the next slide. So this is a video that, go ahead and play it, I took while driving. I'm sure if you've been in the area in the summertime, you've maybe seen something similar to this. This is what we're trying to avoid. And as we go, I think you'll see that there's someone walking alongside the road, which is pretty common, crossing at different places. And then Big Thompson is coming up on our left-hand side here. You'll also see towards the end of this video that there is a white truck at the entrance to Big Thompson, and that's one of our ranger trucks. This area tends to be a very time-intensive area for our staff. You can go to the next slide. So we'll zoom in here on the Big Thompson campground itself. Those 7 campsites are between the county road and the shoreline. And so one of the conflicts we have regularly is trying to keep day users out of the reserved campsites, or encouraging, if the campsite is not reserved, having some of the day users reserve it so that they can claim rights to that space in the campsite there. So it is a constant battle, especially if the campsite is not occupied, but maybe they're coming later in the day. We don't know when they're coming. It's very staff intensive to try and keep that available for the person who paid for it. And so in that, there appears to be a lot of erosion around the campsites and a lot of social trails going down from the campsites down to the shoreline. And so a lot of different access points and a lot of different people trying to use this area. So you'll see even in this picture that there's a lot of squares set up along the shoreline. So even though there's not a lot of day use parking in this, they drop off their stuff and they go park elsewhere, and then they end up walking along the county road to get to this location. Some of them come by boat as well. So that's one of our biggest conflicts there. The new quarry area, so the right-hand picture is kind of showing what we call the new quarry. So that is historically a quarry that the Bureau of Reclamation has used to get rock supplies. And so it has been historically pretty heavily disturbed area. So we are doing, historically, we did have some overflow parking where if our boat ramps with the boat trailers were full, that we would send them over to this area. We actually haven't done that in several years, actually since I believe our South Shore parking lot was redone. So once our boats and trailers fill up at our main boat ramps, we just call it at capacity and we turn people away. And so we no longer send the overflow boaters to this area off-road. However, we still have day users or people that are using the shoreline down below do tend to park in this area. So this area is going to be or has been, you know, just people walking alongside the road, crossing at different areas, parking at different areas, just to try to reach that shoreline. And then they end up, if any of you have walked that shoreline, you know that there's cliffs and then there's some areas that are just not safe to walk on. And then there's some nice beachy areas and some natural trails that have developed with the runoff too. So there's just a variety of areas that you can access, and you can be right and you can be wrong depending on your guess there. So concerns also with some of the pull-off areas, and I'll show some more of the pull-off areas in the next slide here, but it's just this, there's no organized parking to it. So most people are pretty good about staying pretty equal and level. However, it just takes one and then it's just this chaos. But a lot of issues that we see is because there's so many different areas that people pull off in this area, they tend to enter the roadway in random locations where some of the motorists may not be aware that they're pulling out, or so that's kind of some of the chaos in that area. You can go ahead and change the slide. So I've captured in this Google Earth image 4 of the pull-offs in this area that we're talking about, that actually captured some of the vehicles in it. So just to show you that there are quite a few along that whole stretch, and we would like to kind of organize that into 1 or 2 parking areas only, instead of having all of these random spots. The current swim beach at the bottom of our screen here is one of the areas that we're going to close and restore. And so we are going to move the swim area, but currently it's been on this corner. And if you've driven this road, you know that there's usually sand on the road that gets blown in that direction. So we are going to try and restore that to help with some of the sand. But it is a dangerous corner. That lot fills up really fast. It's probably the area that we reach capacity at the most. And at high water, there's just not much of a swim beach anyway. So they end up going along the shoreline north of that anyway. So we are trying to recognize that there are a lot of people that want to access the shoreline, but this may not be the best spot. So what we'll do is have this area, like I said, closed off. So all of the parking and all the vehicles that you see on this slide is what we're trying to organize into the 2 lots that you'll learn about. The swim beach currently is not very inclusive, especially to those with disabilities. we've tried different attempts at some access, but there's just not a lot of room here to build the ramp that's needed or the slope that's needed to access. I think that, it'll be open for questions, but I just wanted to kind of go over what the status we are in now. So I'll turn it over to Julie for another poll.
Thank you, Cindy. There we go. All right, one more. So for our second poll, what percentage of ownership does Larimer County Natural Resources have in Carter Lake? So we're gonna test your knowledge here, and I'll give it a little while so everybody gets a chance to answer. Okay, I think everybody has had a chance to answer, so I'm going to go ahead and end it and share the results. So if you said 0%, you are correct. So as a part of the Colorado Big Thompson project to divert water from the west slope to the east slope for drinking water, irrigation, and hydropower generation, the reservoir is jointly owned and operated by the Bureau of Reclamation and Northern Colorado Water Conservancy District, who manages the water levels for irrigation, municipal, and industry use. So Larimer County, we manage the recreation at the reservoir. So thank you for participating in that. I appreciate that. And now I'm going to pass it on to John Plybon, who will continue with the presentation.
Okay, go ahead and slide that forward. Folks, welcome. I am the project manager for this project, and I'm grateful for you all to show up and join us, and look forward to your feedback on the direction we're taking this project. So as discussed earlier, one of the project areas is the Big Thompson, what is currently a campground. This area is being converted to a day use area. As discussed previously, we've got quite a bit of conflicts here that we're looking to avoid, and we're also looking to improve vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian safety here as well. Well noted earlier, our areas aren't necessarily ADA compatible, compliant, with easy access to the beach or just the shoreline. So we're looking to try and improve that as well here. As you can see, we've got about 72 parking spaces here. We're including 4 accessible spaces as well. We're also bringing in another restroom, which will be located right here. And trying to ease the congestion of this area as well. We're bringing some folks in, organizing the chaos here. Want to point out we do have some accessible picnic tables, maybe some shelters as well here. And I also want to point out we have a fence. Really, we're looking just to manage the visitors here. A fence going along here to really close off some of these less safe access points and direct our visitors to easier, safer access routes down to the shoreline. So lastly, I'll point out we'll be developing a shoreline trail that will begin here at the bottom of the screen here and continue south all the way to our new quarry area. We can go ahead and change the slide. I wanted to give a perspective here of exactly how it looks from the neighborhood up above this Big Thompson area. As you can see in your lower left, there are houses here. So we're just up above the houses and we're looking down into Carter Lake. And you can see Big Thompson down there, the Big Thompson new day use area down there along the shoreline, somewhat between all of the trees. So we are impacting the view shed slightly, but certainly minimally here. Okay, we can advance it again. Now this is the quarry area where we're really trying to focus all of the parking on the sides of the roads and walking across the road here and there. We're trying to create a lot more safety here. And as you can see, we're extending the fence all the way along the road line here to prevent folks from crossing and accessing the shoreline wherever might be convenient for them. We're also, this parking spot, this parking area, you can see we'll have 99 parking spaces and we'll have 6 accessible. And really what we're looking to do here is provide day use parking for access to that east shoreline. As discussed earlier, part of this, we will be closing and restoring the existing South Swim Beach. And then, like I said, we're looking to improve safety and improve access here. So we'll also have a restroom here and we'll have flashing beacons across the sidewalk to safely get folks across. And that is a push button activated, user activated, pedestrian activated device. So it will only flash when there are pedestrians looking to cross the crosswalk. And then once upon the other side, we'll have concrete pathways leading to trails and to additional picnic areas. And with potential shelters, you can see there will be an overlook here and a stairwell to get down to the shore, along with additional trails to access the shoreline here, which will be much safer than we have existing currently. And lower on the screen, you can see we have additional day use picnic areas. I'd like to point out, as you saw in the previous slides and this one, there are several sandy beach areas that the public will be allowed to access, and the shoreline trail will be connecting all of the different potential areas to recreate or for a swim beach from Big Thompson all the way down here. We could go ahead and advance the slide. Again, here we've provided a 3-dimensional perspective from above the houses on the hillside looking down. You will see the quarry lot, the quarry parking lot below you. We've indicated that we are going to be planting some trees around there as well, looking to provide some greater view shed protection there. But you can see we will be impacting the view shed somewhat, but hopefully with all this organization, we will be concentrating folks rather than having everybody spread out everywhere. Okay, we can advance this slide. Now I'd like to discuss, lastly here, our timeline. You know, this year we're having these meetings. We're also going to be having some visitor information stations at these sites, set up specifically at the sites to let our visitors know what to expect. 2025 will be rolling into construction, and we're looking to start our construction right here with the Big Thompson lot, and then we'll work towards building the auxiliary turn lanes, followed by the quarry lot. And then from that point, the rest of Zach had mentioned earlier, there were a couple different sources of funding one of the federal sources of funding known as the FLAP project. That project will continue on improving parking lots throughout Carter Lake, going to Eagle Campground next and then North Pines. There's a chance once we get a contractor under contract that they may be able to do some of this concurrently. So things may change somewhat, but this is what we're planning for initially. And then once the quarry lot is built, June or July, the end of July, our team, our separate contractor on the separately funded, federally funded project, will be working to install all of these day use improvements, such as the picnic shelters, the new trails, all of that sort of thing. And then in 2026, we will continue construction, completing improvements at Inlet Bay at Horsetooth between April and June, and then South Bay at Horsetooth the rest of the year. And we will be complete by the end of the year. 2026, unless there are any sort of alternative schedule requirements from once we get a contractor on board. So that is what we have there for you. You can go ahead and advance the slide. And we are happy to send it back to Julie now at this time, and look forward to any questions you may have.
Thanks, John. Yeah, thank you, everyone, for joining us. So if you would like to receive updates or find more information about the Carter Lake area improvements, you can visit the project engagement page, which you can scan this QR code here tonight if you want to, or you'll see the link there, the URL at the bottom. So if even after this virtual session, you think of questions or would like to submit any additional questions, there is a comments forum on that page. So where you can put those questions and we can respond to them. So yeah, we'll now open it up for questions. Again, feel free to, you would put them in the Q&A box. So if you click on that icon and open up, you can type their questions in there and we'll go answer them.
Great. We just had one pop in and it asks, will anything be done about the traffic congestion at the fee and dump station on County Road 8E?
I can answer that one. So 2020 was awful. And we had a lot of backups and congestion. 2021, we still saw quite a bit of congestion, especially along 8E at the gatehouses. And so what we ended up doing was in our reservation system for our campers, we ended up allowing them to purchase their day passes online so they wouldn't have to stop at the gatehouses. We did see that dramatically improve the number of cars waiting to go into the gatehouses the last 2 years. We've also updated our options for people to sign up for text messages when we're at capacity, when we're full. And so we did notice that people were learning the trends of the areas and knowing when it was full and when it would likely be at capacity or near it when those gatehouses were tending to be backed up. So this past year, I believe we only had one time where we had to send staff down there to try and clear it out, and it cleared out within a few minutes. I'm not aware of any other times this past year that happened, but I personally have spent a lot of time, especially in the 2020 and 2021, a little bit of 2022, of helping clear that congestion whenever those did occur. So I believe that it has improved dramatically since those years, but I would certainly be open to understanding it differently if you found it to be more than what I experienced.
Right. We were asked questions about just general use at Carter, and Cindy, because of your longtime history at the district, could you give kind of a summary of visitor use, what you've seen over the last 15, 20 years, I think, that you've been with the district or with our department.
Sure.
And yeah, and just see how, and just explain how that kind of helps build where we're going into the future.
Sure. Well, we are the sixth busiest reservoir in the state. That's hard to get visitation numbers, but what we can gather from that is about 500,000 people per year. I assure you, we're not trying to invite more. We're just trying to manage what we have. Our mission includes trying to, protect what we have for future generations. So we're trying to make sure that our use that we are getting, we can't make them stop coming. That doesn't work. So we've got to organize what we have coming. So primarily around the Carter Lake area, as you are likely aware, but I'll help fill in some of the blanks. Colorado doesn't have a lot of above wake speed motorboating opportunities. So Carter is a popular area for the motorboatists to come. We also have a pretty popular fishery area. In the summer, I would say primarily we see a lot of the day use where people are coming to boat, paddleboard, fish, hang out, splash around, cool off, all of those things. A little bit of hiking. We don't have a lot of hiking trails around Carter Lake itself. We just have them in other areas. And so due to the terrain, really, we would love to have more hiking opportunities, but as you're aware, the cliffs drop off pretty quickly. So we're unable to have trails that go all the way around the reservoir to keep people off those roadways. So in general, we've had certainly an increase in visitation every year, and just trying to go with the times and manage that, which is, again, another reason why we wanted to kind of stop fighting this conflict of day use in the campsites at Big Thompson is just this shoreline from Dam 2 to Dam 3 is constantly covered with folks trying to utilize it anyway. So we figure that shoreline use will still be there and still be the desire. And so we're just moving the cars from scattered to those areas to kind of help them get to those shorelines a little bit safer and protect those natural resources.
Excellent. Thank you. Just one clarification question on top of that around the new parking area will not have overflow parking for boat trailers, correct?
Correct.
And this question might be for John or Zach, one of you guys. And can you talk a little bit more about lighting? I know that's been a topic of interest of some of our visitors around. Are you going to be popping up light poles? Is it going to be, are you thinking about that now? What is the plan for lighting?
I think I can take this one. So we are going to be installing a vault restroom at the quarry lot. And that will have a very small light, yellow light that points downward on it. And it is something we can discuss if that might be a problem. There might be an option to get rid of that. But there are no other lights going to be installed anywhere else. This is going to be a dawn to dusk service area. And we do not anticipate any overnight usage, no overnight campfires, no overnight parking. The same could be said about the Big Thompson area. There are small lights existing already. There's already an existing restroom there with a small light on it. And there will be another restroom installed as well there. So that's more or less the lighting situation. Do not anticipate any lighting. We are planning for these areas to be closed at dusk.
And I know you mentioned during your part of your presentation too around the crosswalk area, and that isn't something that's going to be on 24/7. It will be activated as people need it. And probably minimally because if they're crossing the street it's gonna be during the daytime, so it's more of just a safety light. Any other details around that piece, the lighting piece for the crosswalk you want to talk about, John?
Yes, I did just get confirmation that it will be a push activation system.
Great.
There will be no constant light flashing. And as I said, we will be closing it at dusk, so I would not anticipate any blinking of lights past dusk.
Day use hours, I know that's been kind of on the mind of some folks too, like what are our day use hours?
So usually what we do is sunrise to sunset, just because that seems to be the easiest thing to keep track of since the times change throughout the year. So however, I do want to make sure that we're being transparent here is that in most of our areas, we do allow active fishing to occur in the evening hours, and our rangers are checking to verify that that is the activity that they're doing, that we're not encouraging, camping in undesignated areas, that we're not allowing big parties to set up, those kind of things. So there may be a car here or there in either of these lots, but from my experience, what I expect, which I could be wrong, what I expect to see in these parking lots is that generally they'll be used primarily when it's busy and hot and lots of people are here and they're trying to find parking, that's where they'll go to. I don't anticipate, because the shoreline is so far away from, especially this quarry lot, that in the evening when most people have cleared out, that will be utilized very often in the evenings, just because of how difficult it is to get down to the shoreline compared to where they have access that isn't crowded.
And I know we have implemented at some of our other properties, gates at open space entrances and closures. Are we planning gates at these parking areas, or will it be open, come and go? Or have we decided?
I don't think we've made that decision yet. I certainly would work with my maintenance crew. Usually we like to close down some of the areas just because of staffing. We don't have the staff to plow all winter long and to clean the bathrooms all year round. So I would assume that we would try to keep some of the parking available, but that a majority of it will try and close off, just because we won't be able to keep up with that in the winter. So probably similar to the Lower Eagle area that gets closed off at the end of October through probably April 1st.
Okay, thank you. So we just got one more question in here. Blowing sand is already a problem from the lake. Is there any plan to mitigate that and not having it increase with this new plan?
I can
I
take that one.
go right ahead. Sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, we certainly recognize that challenge, as does our road and bridge department, which has to maintain that and sweep that on a very regular basis. And so with the closure of that area for parking, road and bridge has already expressed an interest in installing some mitigation measures to prevent sand from blowing across the road. What those look like remain to be seen. That's a relatively new conversation with them, but the answer is yes. We do intend to address the sand on the road challenge.
Yeah, thank you. There
If
are.
I could add
Go ahead, yeah.
in addition to that, we also, as part of our restoration aspect of this project, we plan to install appropriate shrubbery and grasses in the two areas where we experience the blowing sand to help mitigate that as well. So we're going to be looking for ecological and civil solutions to mitigate the sand problem.
Thanks. Thank you. There are fox who live in the quarry area. What about them? Who wants to take that one?
I can't. Did I hear fox? Like the
Fox.
animal? Okay.
Yeah, FOX. Yeah.
That's what I heard. I don't know. I think I've had some schooling in wildlife biology. Certainly, anyone on this panel might have an answer to this as well. I just, during construction phases or when there's lots of people around, we don't tend to see fox anyway. And so, their normal traveling in the evening is likely not to be impacted by this once it's set up and going. So I don't anticipate it impacting their populations very much.
Furthermore, we will install construction fencing where needed to mitigate this issue. And I can also inform you all that this project has gone through a thorough NEPA process, National Environmental Protection Act process, where all environmental, archaeological, and all of those sorts of concerns have been reviewed and addressed.
Great. Well, that wraps up the questions that we've gotten this evening. I don't know if you, from our staff colleagues, are there any other final comments you want to add or things you've thought through that you want to throw into the presentation tonight? And if not, I'll turn it back over to Julie to wrap up.
Cindy, can you speak to the potential usage changes on the water? I had some questions last night at our meeting about
Sure.
Specifically, are we going to continue access for paddlecraft at Carter Lake?
Sure. Yeah, I'll touch on everything that we know so far. We know that we're closing down that swim beach, which is a very popular area. So what we want to do is move that up north. With the water levels changing constantly, we will have the swim line itself changing locations depending on what seems to be a good location for it. However, that entire stretch from the Big Thompson area down to where the crosswalk will cross the county road, we likely will have no motorboats allowed in that area to allow for some of that shoreline water access. However, what we have found with the motorboats that we usually close the swim beach somewhere around September 15th every summer. And yet we still have a month and a half of really beautiful weather and warm water. And so as soon as we pull that swim line, the boaters love taking up that swim beach area. And so the current swim beach area. And so what we'll plan on is the motor boats will be displaced from the north corner there and will open up for the current swim beach area once we clear that out for them to beach there, which I think a lot of people would much rather beach in that sand than some of the rocky areas that move up north. So as far as the paddlecraft, what that will create is having that buffer from the Big Thompson area down to where the crosswalk crosses over. That whole area there will be no motorboats, so it will be an ideal place for the paddle boarders to be launching, which also helps with our congestion at the boat ramps. We get a lot of paddle boarders that are trying to launch from the boat ramps and causing some congestion issues with the motorboats coming on and off the water. And so this will provide a nice area for them to launch from and explore from there. I also had, Corey, if you won't mind, I will
Go ahead.
mention also in regards to the congestion question that came up around Gate 1 and 8E. We are looking to put out an RFP for a license plate reader program for our permits to be changed from our archaic sticky notes on the window thing to license plate readers. And so that should also help once we get that going with the congestion at the gatehouses as well. And then of course, I'm sure most people are aware of the Chimney Hollow Reservoir coming in hopefully in the next few years, where we anticipate that a lot of the paddle craft will want to utilize that area. For now, what we're aware of before doing our public process for Chimney Hollow is that we cannot have motorboats above wake speed. So it will at most be a wakeless motorboating area. So that will be hopefully ideal for the paddlecraft to take some of that congestion, because Carter Lake is a rare water skiing opportunity or motorboating opportunity above wake speed. So that is also to come.
Nice. Well, it looks like that wraps up the Q&A open questions from our guests. I can turn it over to Julie here to wrap us up for the night.
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us this evening and sharing your questions. Again, a reminder that if you want to receive updates or get more information, you can go to the public engagement page, and which also has the comments forum where you can enter additional questions after this session. So that's all we have for this evening. We'll be on for just a little bit longer if you want to pop any more questions into the Q&A. Otherwise, we again, thank you for joining us and hope you have a great evening.